The deafening crack of splintering wood and panicked screams shattered the peaceful desert air as the heavy wagon careened off the narrow mountain pass. Clara May Thompson clung desperately to the rough wooden side beside her, her knuckles white with strain as the world outside became a dizzying blur of dust and sky. Then came the impact, violent and absolute, sending her consciousness spiraling into darkness. The Arizona Territory, 1878, was unforgiving to those who traveled its rugged expanses, and Clara May had known the risks. A school teacher from Philadelphia, she had accepted a position in the growing frontier town of Serenity Gulch, seeking a new beginning. After the passing of her parents, the city had become a cage of sympathetic glances and the hushed opinions of a society that saw her ample frame as a spinster's curse. She was tired of being judged for her size rather than her mind. Here, she hoped, her worth would be measured by the knowledge she imparted, not the circumference of her waist. The wagon had been making good time until the bandits appeared on the ridge. Pain was the first sensation that returned to her. A searing, white-hot agony in her left leg. Clara May's eyes fluttered open to a nightmare of twisted metal, shattered wood, and terrible stillness. Dust motes danced in the rays of sunlight that pierced the wreckage. She tried to move but found herself pinned beneath the wagon's heavy canvas roof, which had collapsed along with its frame. "Hello," she called out, her voice barely a whisper. "Is anyone there?" No response came from the driver or the other passengers, a traveling salesman and an elderly woman heading to visit her son. Clara May's throat constricted with fear as she realized what their silence likely meant. Tears welled in her eyes as shock gave way to the terrible reality of her situation. Miles from civilization, trapped in a deadly prison of wood and metal, with the merciless sun climbing higher in the cloudless sky. Hours passed. The heat became unbearable as midday approached. Clara May drifted in and out of consciousness, her parched lips cracking as dehydration set in. In her more lucid moments, she thought of the life she'd never have, the children she'd never teach in Serenity Gulch, and the dreams of acceptance that would die with her in this forsaken place. It was the sound of approaching hoofbeats that finally penetrated her delirium. At first, she thought it was her mind playing cruel tricks, but when a shadow fell across her face, blocking the punishing sun, she forced her eyes open. "Sweet mercy," a deep voice murmured. "Miss, can you hear me?" Clara May tried to respond, but her throat was too dry. She managed a weak nod. "Hold on. I'm going to get you out of there." The figure moved out of her line of vision, and Clara May heard the sound of boots on gravel, then the creak of strained wood as someone began to pull away pieces of the wreckage. Minutes later, hands, gentle but strong, were checking her for injuries. "My leg," she managed to rasp. "I think it's broken." "Don't you worry about that now. First things first, let's get you some water." A canteen was pressed to her lips, and Clara May drank greedily, the cool liquid like heaven against her parched throat. As her rescuer continued to carefully remove the debris pinning her, she got her first good look at him. He was tall and broad-shouldered with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. A dusty hat sat atop dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. His face was angular but handsome, with several days' worth of stubble darkening his jaw. "Owen Croft," he said, noticing her gaze. "Most folks just call me Owen." "Clara May Thompson," she replied, her voice stronger now. "I'm in your debt, Mr. Croft." Owen's mouth curved in a slight smile. "Let's get you free before you start handing out medals, Miss Thompson." With careful precision, he lifted the final beam trapping her leg, grimacing at the sight of her injury. The bone wasn't protruding, but her calf was bent at an unnatural angle. "I need to set this before we move you," he said grimly. "It's going to hurt something fierce." Clara May nodded, steeling herself. "Do what you must." Owen removed his bandana and offered it to her. Bite down on this. She placed the fabric between her teeth just as his strong hands took hold of her leg. The pain that followed was blinding, electric in its intensity. A muffled scream escaped her before darkness claimed her once more. When Clara May awoke again, she was moving. Strong arms held her securely against a warm chest as a horse carried them at a steady pace across the open terrain. She felt a brief, familiar flash of shame at her own weight, bracing for a sign that she was a burden, but the man's hold was effortless and sure. Night had fallen, and the desert air had cooled considerably. "Welcome back," Owen said, his voice rumbling against her ear where it pressed to his chest. "The others?" Clara May asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. A heavy silence followed. "I buried them proper," he finally replied. "Said words over them, too." "I'm sorry," Miss Thompson, grief washed over her for the strangers who had shared her final journey. "Thank you for that kindness," she whispered. "My ranch is about an hour's ride from here," Owen told her. "It ain't much, but it's clean and safe. I can tend to your leg proper there, then take you to town when you're ready to travel." Clara May wanted to protest, to insist she could make it to Serenity Gulch immediately, but exhaustion and pain made the decision for her. "I'm grateful for your help, Mr. Croft." "Owen," he corrected. "Mr. Croft was my father, and he was a mean old cuss not worthy of the title." Despite everything, Clara May found herself smiling slightly. "Owen, then." They rode in companionable silence, the rhythm of the horse's gait and Owen's steady heartbeat lulling Clara May into a state between wakefulness and sleep. The stars above blazed in their thousands, more than she'd ever seen in Philadelphia's light-polluted skies. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Owen asked, following her gaze upward. "That's one thing I never tire of out here. Makes a man feel small, but in a good way." "In Philadelphia, you can barely see the stars at all," Clara May replied. "Too many gas lamps and too much smoke." "Philadelphia. That's a fair piece from here. What brings a city lady like yourself to this territory?" "I'm to be the new school teacher in Serenity Gulch," she explained. "Or I was supposed to be. I imagine they'll have found someone else by now." Owen shook his head. "I doubt it. Serenity Gulch's been trying to get a proper teacher for over a year. Folks there will wait for you, especially once they hear what happened." Clara May wasn't so certain, but she was too tired to argue the point. True to Owen's word, they arrived at a small, solidly built cabin nestled against a rocky outcropping about an hour later. A corral for horses and a small garden plot stood to one side. A creek gurgled nearby, providing the precious water that made life possible in this harsh landscape. Owen dismounted with Clara May still in his arms, carrying her as if she weighed nothing at all into the house. The cabin's interior was spare but neat, a far cry from what Clara May had expected of a bachelor's dwelling. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, while a bed, a table with 2 chairs, and a small bookshelf constituted the majority of the furnishings. "You read?" Clara May couldn't help asking as Owen gently laid her on the bed. A slight flush colored his cheeks. "When I can. Books are hard to come by out here, but I trade for them when possible." He busied himself lighting a lamp and stoking the banked fire while Clara May took stock of her situation. Her dress was torn and filthy, her leg throbbed painfully despite Owen's skilled splinting, and all her worldly possessions were lost in the wagon wreck. Yet she was alive, which was more than could be said for her fellow passengers. "I need to clean that leg properly and make a better splint," Owen said, interrupting her thoughts. "I've got some whiskey that'll help with the pain." Clara May had never touched spirits in her life, but she nodded gratefully as he poured a generous measure into a tin cup. "Drink it all down," he instructed. Quick as best, she followed his advice, gasping as the liquid burned its way down her throat and settled like fire in her belly. Owen's mouth quirked in amusement at her reaction. "Never had whiskey before." "Is it that obvious?" she managed between coughs. "Just a bit." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. She noticed it transformed his weathered face, making him look younger and more approachable. The whiskey did its work quickly, dulling Clara May's senses as Owen carefully cut away the fabric of her dress around the injury. She should have been mortified at the impropriety, but survival had a way of reshaping one's priorities. "I was a field medic during the war," Owen explained as he worked. "Seen worse than this. You're lucky the break is clean." "Were you with the Union forces?" Clara May asked, partly from curiosity and partly to distract herself. Owen nodded. "Cavalry. Enlisted in '62, fought till Appomattox, his hand stilled momentarily. Lost a lot of good men. Came west afterward. Couldn't stomach going back home to Virginia. I'm sorry, Clara May said softly. Owen resumed his work, his touch gentle despite his calloused hands. War changes a man. Makes him see things different. Out here, a person can breathe, make their own way without the weight of the past bearing down. Clara May understood that sentiment all too well. After losing her parents, Philadelphia had become suffocating with memories and judgment. The teaching position in the Arizona Territory had offered escape as much as opportunity. When Owen finished with the splint, he helped Clara May into one of his own shirts, turning his back politely while she changed. The garment swallowed her frame, but it was clean and smelled of sunlight and sage. You should rest now, he told her. I'll take the floor to. Clara May started to protest, but exhaustion claimed her before she could form the words. The next few days passed in a hazy routine. Owen tended to her injury, brought her food and water, and spent hours simply talking with her. Clara May learned he'd been a rancher for 5 years, running a small herd of cattle on land he'd claimed through the Homestead Act. In turn, she told him about Philadelphia, her love of teaching, and her dreams of making a difference. Owen listened intently, asking questions that revealed a sharp intelligence behind his unassuming manner. On the 4th day, Clara May insisted on getting up. Owen had fashioned a crude crutch, which allowed her to move around the small cabin. It was a small victory, but it lifted her spirits immeasurably. That evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, she broached the subject on her mind. I need to get to Serenity Gulch soon. I've imposed on your hospitality long enough. Owen's expression was unreadable in the fading light. Your leg needs more time to heal. I have responsibilities, Clara May insisted. And I can't stay here indefinitely. It's not proper. A silence stretched between them. I could marry you, Owen said suddenly, then immediately looked mortified. I mean, that would make it proper. You staying here while you heal? Clara May stared at him, speechless. A proposal? For her? The idea was so foreign, so utterly impossible in her experience, that she didn't know how to react. That came out all wrong, Owen groaned, running a hand through his hair. I'm not suggesting. I wouldn't presume. What I meant was, I respect you, Miss Thompson. I wouldn't want your reputation sullied. Despite everything, a genuine, heartfelt laugh bubbled up from deep inside her, surprising them both. Mr. Croft, that may be the most backward proposal a woman has ever received. Owen's cheeks flashed deep red. It wasn't a proposal, just a practical consideration. Clara May's laughter subsided, but her smile remained. I appreciate the thought, misguided as it was. But I think we can find a more conventional solution. Relief and something that might have been disappointment crossed Owen's face. The next morning, a visitor arrived. The sound of hoofbeats brought Owen to the door, rifle in hand, until he recognized the rider. Marcus! Wasn't expecting you for another week. Got the supplies you asked for, the man replied, then stopped short when he spotted Clara May in the doorway. Well, now. What's this? Owen quickly explained the situation while the man, Marcus Finch, a trader, eyed Clara May with open curiosity. Headed for Serenity Gulch, were you? He asked when Owen finished. As it happens, I'm heading that way myself day after tomorrow. Could take word to the town council about what happened. Clara May seized the opportunity. Would you? I'd be so grateful, Marcus agreed readily and, after sharing a meal, continued on his way with a letter from Clara May explaining her situation. That evening, a strange tension hung in the air. Owen was quieter than usual. Have I done something to upset you? She finally asked. He sighed heavily. It's not that, Miss Thompson. Clara May, the way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. I suppose I'm just realizing that soon you'll be gone, and things will go back to how they were before. The implication hung between them. In the short time she'd known Owen Croft, he had saved her life, tended her injuries, and shown her a kindness and respect that asked nothing in return. He saw her, not her size. Perhaps, she said carefully, things don't have to be exactly as they were before. Owen's gaze met hers, a cautious hope dawning in his grey eyes. What are you saying, Clara May? I'm saying that Serenity Gulch is only 15 miles from your land. That's not so very far, is it? A slow smile spread across Owen's face. Not far at all. Especially for a man with a good horse. 2 weeks later, Marcus Finch returned, this time accompanied by a delegation from Serenity Gulch, the mayor, the town doctor, and a matronly woman introduced as Mrs. Gable, who owned the boarding house. The doctor examined Clara May's leg and declared Owen had done a damn fine job setting it. The school term doesn't start for another month, the mayor informed her. Plenty of time for you to finish healing. Mrs. Gable, a widow with sharp eyes but a kind smile, pulled Clara May aside. That rancher of yours seems a decent sort. Quiet type, but respected. Clara May felt her cheeks warm. He's not my rancher, Mrs. Gable. The older woman's knowing look said she wasn't fooled. If you say so, dear. But a woman alone in these parts could do well to consider a man like that. The 2 weeks that followed took on a bittersweet quality. Owen seemed determined to show her every beautiful vista within riding distance, fashioning a special stirrup that allowed her to ride despite her splintered leg. They explored hidden canyons and crystal-clear springs. On one such excursion, they stopped by a small waterfall. The desert was in bloom after recent rains. I never imagined the desert could be so beautiful, Clara May admitted. Most people only see what they expect to see, Owen replied. They think desert means emptiness, but it's full of life if you know where to look. She studied him, noting how at ease he was in this environment. This man had saved her, nursed her, and asked for nothing. He had seen past the physical shell that Philadelphia society could not. Owen, she said suddenly, do you remember that night you jokingly suggested marriage? He turned to face her. I recall it wasn't my finest moment. Clara May gathered her courage. What if it wasn't so outlandish an idea? Clara May, what are you saying? I'm saying that in 2 days I'll be leaving for Serenity Gulch. I'll teach children, board with Mrs. Gable, and build a life there. As she took a deep breath. But I find myself wondering if there might be room in that life for more. Owen crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides. Are you asking me to court you properly, Clara May Thompson? I believe I am, she replied, her heart pounding. His weathered hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch infinitely gentle. Then I accept. Though I warn you, I'm not much good at fancy courting rituals. I don't need fancy, Clara May whispered. I just need honest. When his lips met hers, it was like coming home to a place she'd never been before. On her last night at the cabin, they sat outside beneath the stars, hands intertwined. Mrs. Gable mentioned the school has living quarters attached for the teacher, Clara May said carefully. They're small, but private. And the position comes with a modest salary, enough to support a simple life. Perhaps even enough to support 2, if one of them continued to run cattle on his homestead nearby. Owen's expression grew serious. Clara May, are you proposing to me now? She laughed, the sound bright in the desert night. I suppose I am. We seem to have a habit of doing things backward, you and I. Owen pulled her gently into his arms. I wouldn't have it any other way. But if we're doing this, we're doing it proper. And there, under the vast canopy of stars, Owen Croft knelt before Clara May Thompson and asked her to marry him with words far more eloquent than she'd expected. She said yes, of course. The delegation from Serenity Gulch arrived the next morning. Mrs. Gable, in particular, seemed smugly satisfied. The Reverend comes through town every 3rd Sunday, she informed them. I'll make sure he knows to expect a wedding next month. Over the following weeks, as Clara May prepared the schoolhouse, Owen became a regular visitor. He helped repair the roof, built new benches, and won over the townspeople with his quiet integrity. When the Reverend arrived, the entire town turned out. Clara May wore a simple cream dress with wildflowers in her hair. They exchanged vows beneath the shade of cottonwood trees. That night, as husband and wife in their small living quarters, Owen asked, "Did you ever imagine, when you boarded that wagon, that this is where the journey would lead?" Clara May nestled closer to him. "Never. But then the best journeys are the ones that surprise us, aren't they?" "They surely are," Owen agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. 5 years later, Clara May stood on the porch of their expanded cabin, watching as Owen taught their twin 4-year-old boys to handle a small pony. The wagon route now passed much closer to their property, a testament to the growth of Serenity Gulch. Clara May still taught at the school, and Owen's ranch had grown, providing a comfortable living for their family. Sometimes, she would think back to that terrible day of the crash. The memory no longer brought fear, only a profound gratitude. From the wreckage of disaster had come the greatest blessing of her life, a love rooted deep in the harsh but beautiful land they both called home.